I don't know if maybe she has sued to not have it released. No, I mean, whew. Всем привет! Меня зовут Wally и добро пожаловать на мой канал. Today we are finishing a series I started well over a year ago at this point, but I am low-key a completist and better late than never, right? We are going to recap the Uneven Bars Final from the 1992 Europeans in Nantes, Brittany, in the west of France. So let's set the stage. It is May 1992. In real time, it would still be 2 months before I discovered gymnastics at the glorious Barcelona Games. On paper, the top gymnast at this meet was Svetlana Boginskaya, the reigning world all-around and vault silver medalist. During the all-around, she was potentially one routine away from tying Nadia Comaneci's incredible record of 3 consecutive European titles when disaster struck in the last rotation on floor. She landed short on her dismount, she had to put both of her hands down, and she wound up in 5th place. And if you remember from my last video, she did not fare any better during vault finals, where she fell for a second time. Boginskaya was the reigning co-European champion on uneven bars, but the expectations for the apparatus had changed dramatically in the 2 years since Piraeus. Boginskaya had really not tried to move with the times at all when it came to uneven bars, and while she did make the bars final here, she was not really in the gold medal conversation. A hop back on her double pike flyaway dismount in the finals sealed her fate, and she did not even finish on the podium, let alone defend her European title, scoring only a 9.85. In winning the all-around silver medal, Gina Gogean had qualified for all 4 event finals and had come up just short to Tatiana Gutsu, again on vaulting as she had in the all-around. And while bars would never be her forte, her routine here made up for in originality and difficulty what she lacked in basics. If I told you that Gina Gogean would be giving us excitement on bars, you might be a bit skeptical, but seeing is believing, and she actually performed the same release combination as Kim Gwang-suk, the 91 world champion, a reverse hecht into an immediate Marinich or reverse hecht front. Unfortunately for her, she brushed her feet against the mat transitioning down to the low bar, which took her out of medal conversation. Despite that, she still went for her double layout dismount, which was an upgrade from the all-around competition where she just did a double tuck, and the landing was magnificent. Very impressive. It appears most of the judges took about 2/10 for her feet touching the mat, and she scored a 9.687. In my beam video, I talked a lot about how Gina Gogean had much more difficulty in 1992 and in many ways was the polar opposite of what her name and career represent nowadays. As this release combination wasn't very consistent, I do understand why she took it out, but it was such an exciting moment nonetheless. Tatiana Gutsu had battled back beautifully after struggling at the 1992 World Championships the month prior to Nantes. She had won 2 individual silver medals at the 91 Worlds in Indianapolis, yet failed to make any of the individual finals in Paris. During qualifications, she made uncharacteristic mistakes on bars and floor and just got unlucky by getting 2-per'd out of beam finals behind Lysenko and Boginskaya. By the way, it's very strange that I cannot find footage of Gutsu's qualification routines from Paris, although surely they were filmed. And I understand that there were over 70 gymnasts who competed in qualifications on each event, but Gutsu was one of the top gymnasts. So while I could understand Yelena Grudneva, who I discovered was actually at this meet competing on bars and beam, I understand not seeing her maybe, but to not see one of the stars in Tatiana Gutsu is kind of bizarre. If I remember correctly from an interview that I saw, I think she fell on her Tkachev on bars, but I have no idea what mistake she made on floor. Speaking of Sazaninkova, who was competing for an independent Latvia, she scored a 9.25 on bars and an 8.6 on beam. And although they didn't show Yelena, they did show her teammate Lyudmila Prince, who later would compete in World Finals on beam in 1993. At 92 Worlds, she did a gorgeous Sassone series during qualifications that it simply took my breath away. It was stunning. Getting back to Gutsu, like Gogean, she had qualified for all 4 individual event finals and was just coming off winning vault with a spectacular layout Sukahara full, which you can see in my prior video in the series. I will link to it up here. Here in bars finals, she showed her trademark quickness and aggressive swing. Tatiana was obviously world class on bars and would win the Olympic silver medal behind Lu Li later that summer. The top routines of this era would typically show 2 high bar release skills. Tatiana did a Ginger out of a giant full and then a beautiful Tkachev, as I mentioned earlier. Transitions between the bars were usually pretty stock and uninteresting with no risk. Few gymnasts chose to use a Shaposhnikova or one of its myriad variations that are so commonplace today. Gutsu did have a stalder on the low bar in her 91 routine, but sadly that was taken out in 92. And I really think that could have made the difference between Tatiana and Lu Li, because Lu Li did have a low bar stalder in her routine. Tatiana performs the same dismount as Gina Gogean, a double layout, but the difference in terms of amplitude is like night and day. Gutsu generates so much power and acceleration in her giants that she is able to fly sky high off that high bar. I think this is why she was coined the Painted Bird of Odessa, because I think as she says it,
Painted Bird from Odessa. Why? Because I always had blue and green eyeshadow, blue eyes, so it was kind of like popping out. Blonde hair. I was really high on my performances, like on my skills. You know, if I was doing my skill, I was doing it very, very high. Double layout from the bars. You know, it's kind of like you whipping in and then you flying out like a bird.
She nearly always stuck the dismount as she does here, and it's really such a wonderful, spectacular skill. I would have scored this routine 9.95, as do 4 of the judges. Her overall score is 9.937, which has her in first place so far. Next up is Snejana Hristakieva from Bulgaria. She was only 15, and like Gogean, this was her first season as a senior. And although her career didn't last very long, she absolutely made an impact on the sport. She performed an incredibly difficult skill taken from the men's high bar, a 1.5 twisting back flyaway to recatch, called a def and mag for Jacques Def. Her form on it was a bit sloppy, but I really appreciate the pushing of the envelope. That skill has a G value in the current code of points and has really been only performed a handful of times since then, most notably by 2004 Olympic gold medalist Emily Lepenek. Hristakieva did not have the same tight form that we saw from Gutsu. Her handstands weren't as good, and she lost a bit of lower leg form on her giants. Her dismount is a full twisting double back, and she lands pretty low and has to take a hop forward. Her scores are all over the map, ranging from 9.7 to 9.9. I probably would have had this at 9.85, which happens to be her final score, and this puts her into a tie for second place at the moment. So I first heard maybe a year or two ago that Snejana had passed away while working at a circus in Germany, and she was in a car accident apparently. And if that is true, which it appears to be, it is just so tragic and sad, especially because I can't find any kind of official confirmation of it. Her Wikipedia still lists her as being alive. In addition to the skill that we saw on bars, she also introduced a vault that became incredibly popular in the beginning of the next quadrennium that was also named after her. So it's just surprising and unfortunate that her death wasn't more widely publicized. She definitely deserves all the flowers and then some, as I feel she was incredibly innovative and contributed a great deal to the sport. And both she and Silvia Miteva were also kind of the end of an era when it came to Bulgarian gymnastics. They were pretty much the last stars, along with Maya Risteva, who wasn't even able to compete at the 92 games. My personal queen, Yelena Alexandrovna Grudneva, is next to go. She had a completely different style from the majority of the gymnasts in this final. She performed skills that were far more common among the Chinese gymnasts, such as an inverted giant into a straddled Jaeger, and she finishes her routine with a stalder backwards into an Indo or forward stalder, immediately into a double front half-out dismount. Unfortunately, she doesn't stick the landing and has to take a small hop, which is really too bad. I absolutely love the variety in this exercise. She was an exquisite bars worker. I would still have this at a 9.9, as do 4 of the judges. Unfortunately, 2 of the judges are haters and score her at 9.8, which makes her average 9.875, and she is into second behind Gutsu with 1 gymnast left. I've talked a lot about Tatiana Lysenko in previous videos I've made, including one I made about her journey at 92 Worlds, where she won her first individual world medal on floor exercise. I also discussed her in my floor and vault videos in this series, where she sadly underperformed and finished off the podium in both instances. And during the all-around here in Nantes, she finished 4th despite falling on her mounting sequence on beam. Tatiana could be hit or miss on bars, sometimes literally, as she often struggled catching the low bar during transitions. In fact, at Worlds in 91 and 92, she missed the bar on her shoot over to low, and she even had to stop her routine at 91 Worlds during bars finals. I think she either sprained or broke a few of her fingers. However, here in Nantes, she did a great job. Her style is very unique, right from her mount. She does a half turn to grab the high bar, casts to a handstand, and then does that Shaposhnikova I mentioned earlier, right into a full turn. She then kip casts a handstand and does a front giant and reverse grip into a Jaeger. She then overshoots the low bar where, as I mentioned, she sometimes struggled, but it's fine here. She goes right into a stalder, which is such a difficult and cool combination. She then sets up for her dismount. She does a giant blind to the same dismount we just saw from Grudneva, double front half out, and like Yelena, she is a bit off and has to take a small shuffle back. So I don't think Lysenko has as good of swing as Grudneva or Gutsu, and in slow motion you can see she loses form a little bit on her Jaeger while she regrasps, but I really love the intricacy of her exercise. She has so many unique skills and combinations, which is so incredibly refreshing. I probably would have this at a 9.9. There is a wider range in her scores than Yelena Grudneva received, but she has 2 9.95s, one of which she counts along with a 9.85 and 2 9.9s. Her score overall is 9.9 dead, earning her second place. So Tatiana Gutsu wins her 3rd gold medal of these European Championships. Tatiana Lysenko and Yelena Grudneva each pick up the only European medals of their careers, a silver and bronze respectively. So overall, I didn't think this final was quite as exciting as some of the other ones. My results would have been Gutsu first, and then Lysenko and Grudneva tied for second. But I definitely understand why Tatiana edged out Yelena for most of the judges, either due to reputation or just having an honest preference for her exercise. I think had either one stuck or dismount, it really would have made the difference for me, but as neither one did, I had them tied. And of course, Tatiana Gutsu did stick or dismount, in addition to the wonderful qualities we discussed earlier that has her as the clear gold medalist in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching this. I'm likely finished with this series now, but I guess an all-around video isn't completely out of the question. I haven't really dug in too deeply to see if I would have had a different podium, but it's incredibly unlikely considering Lysenko, Grudneva, and Boginskaya all made crucial errors that knocked them out of contention. In any case, please smash that like button if you like this video. I hope everybody has a great day, and I will see all of you guys in my next one. Do skoro. Take care. Bye, loves.